Welcome to Jude, the podcast. I'm David Jude. I'm your host, as always. Listen, I am flying solo today, and that's okay. There is a special project that has been on my mind for several years now, and I am excited to release this, and I hope you have as much fun listening to it as I did creating it. I don't know how old our listeners are. I just don't know that type of information. So I'm going to do a throwback to this iconic radio voice today. For me, I remember growing up as a young boy, and on Saturday mornings I would run errands with my dad. We would load up in the truck and do things like go to the bank and go to the dry cleaners and whatever other errands that Dad had to run that day. And while in the truck with him, we would listen to a radio show, and it just has always stuck with me. The radio show, the iconic voice that I'm here to try to work on today, is Mr. Paul Harvey. Do you know Paul Harvey? Do you remember him? What a voice. Just captivating and had you standing by for whatever the next word was. If you don't know who he is, it's worth going back and listening if you're into these type of things. So at any rate, I'm not trying to imitate Paul Harvey in what you're about to hear, but I am inspired by him. I do love the ability of someone that's able to communicate that way. Paul Harvey created a series of, I guess you'd call them speeches or just commentary pieces that he would put on his show. And in the mid-1950s, late 50s, early 60s, somewhere in that time frame, he recorded one called If I Were the Devil. The neat part about that is when you hear and listen to the words, how relevant they were then, but you really can't help but come back and say, man, those are just as relevant today as they were then. At any rate, I've wanted to do this for a long time. I'm not trying to be Paul Harvey. I am inspired by him, and I hope that this reading of If I Were the Devil pays appropriate tribute to the man that had the perfect voice for radio. With that, I appreciate every like, share, listen, and download. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I'll see you on the next one. If I were the devil, if I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness. And I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population. But I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. Thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. In the old, I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I would tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families that war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with the promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon, I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls in church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want it until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what do you bet I could get the whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich? I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus, I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing. David Jude. Good day.